Hello guys, welcome to the first episode of this series where we are developing a real-world Angular project. So in this playlist, I am going to teach you whatever there is to learn about Angular and Angular development. If you know a bit about Angular, but you want to enhance your skills, you want to, deepen your knowledge, you want to learn the more advanced stuff in the context of a real application, this tutorial is perfect for you. So in this tutorial, you're going to learn so many important things. You're going to, see how to implement all of these inside of a real Angular project. And I'm going to teach you every single thing that there is to know about Angular. If you haven't watched my other playlists about Angular or other front-end libraries or frameworks like, for example, React or, for example, Vue, just take a look at my channel. I've got, other playlists for other related stuff. This course, this playlist is going to focus 100% of developing a real Angular project. And I assure you that if you keep watching the videos and if you practice what I am showing you, you will, before you know it, you will become a competent Angular developer. So this is the first episode. I have prepared notes for each episode. In each episode, we are going to talk about the thing that we want to develop, the feature that we want to create. I'm going to study the notes with you, but I am going to spend most of my time in Visual Studio Code as well. So if you take a look at my other, display, I've got this window, this instance of VS Code, which is running a simple Angular application. And inside of Chrome, as you can see, I am seeing the output of that application. So we're going to, develop this application one step at a time using different branches for each episode, and we're going to evolve the application and implement everything there is to implement for this application. So right now, if you take a look, I am on branch 1. This means that you've got different branches for different episodes, and you can find the link to the files of this project in the video description. If you navigate to the video description of this video, you will find the link to get the exercise files. So let's talk about episode number 1 then. We are going to set up our Angular project and create the first component. So this is the goal. These are the goals for this episode. We're going to create an application using Angular CLI command line interface. We're going to create a new Angular project. We're going to talk about the structure of the project. We're going to generate our first component, and we're going to define 2 model classes, employee and project. And right now, the application is going to use these 2 model classes. An employee can have, some projects associated with them. So we're going to model these. First, let's talk about Angular CLI. I have already installed Angular CLI on my machine, Angular command line interface, which is a tool that helps us to write some command line, commands, like for example, for generating a component service, let's say creating a new application. So you can install it using npm or node package manager using this command. I have already installed this, so I'm going to skip this first, step. The next step, step number 2, is creating the project. So when you install your CLI, you will be able to create a new project using ng-new. Using ng, you are invoking the Angular CLI. ng-new means create a new, project, and then this is the name of the project. I have already done that. So I have created this project. If you take a look at package.json, you will see the name employee project manager, right? So I have taken step 2 as well. Then you can serve the application, which is again something that I have done. So when you serve your application, you will get the output on your local host and the port number that the application is showing. So the application is running on localhost port 4200. Now we want to talk about the project structure. So this is what we are going to have when we create an Angular application. So you're going to have your src folder and then a subfolder called app. This is your main workspace. Your application files are going to reside here. Then you're going to get a component called the root component, app.component.ts. So your components are going to be written in TypeScript. If you use modules in your application, you're going to have like a main module where all the components and imports are declared. Here in this tutorial, I'm going to use standalone components. So I'm not going to use modules, and I am going to talk about standalone components and their advantages. We've got the main.ts file. If you take a look here, this is the main.ts file. This is the bootstrap file. So it kind of bootstraps the application, right? It kind of bootstraps the application using the app component. And then we've got index.html. This is the entry point of your application. If you take a look at index.html, this app root is where the application is going to be launched. And then you have your angular.json. This is the configuration file that you can, use to configure Angular, which is not something that we want to touch, at least for now. The first thing that we want to do now inside of this application is to create these two model classes. So the application that we're going to develop is going to have two model classes, employee and project. So these are going to be imported. These are going to be implemented as interfaces using TypeScript with, a set of properties. For example, an employee is going to have an ID, name, role, and an array of projects. And then the project is going to have an ID, name, description, and deadline. So these are going to reside inside of the models folder. So let me take you to the project. Inside of the app, I'm going to quickly create my models folder, and then I need to create the employee.ts model.ts, a TypeScript file, and I'm going to create project.model.ts. You can name your file whatever you want. I want to follow some naming conventions, like for example, adding a suffix to the name of the file, employee.model, to kind of specify that this is a model class. Now I'm going to write the code. So it's going to be an interface using TypeScript. It's going to import another type called project, which we will implement in a moment. And it's going to have three properties and another property with type of an array of projects. So an array of project. Now let's create the project because we are importing the project inside of the employee. So the project has four files, four properties: ID, name, description, and deadline. Now we have implemented the model classes. Now let's continue and talk about components. When you create your Angular application, by default you get this app component. But of course, our application is going to need other components as well. For example, an employee list component. We want to create this. We want to put it inside of a folder called employees. And then when you create a component, you will get four files. The component, let's say logic file, right? TypeScript, the template file, stylings, and the test, which we are going to use later. And the component is going to be a standalone component. We are going to talk about standalone components briefly later. So here, let me add a new terminal tab. And then what I want to do is to use Angular CLI to generate a component. So ng generate component, and it's going to be a standalone component. So if I give it a couple of seconds, it's going to create this folder called components using the, simple and default structure of a component in Angular. It is called employee list component. But of course, we're going to change this shortly. So yeah, we want to use this app list component inside of the app component. We're going to use the employee list component actually. So employee list component, if you take a look at the TS file, the selector is app employee list. So inside of my app component, here I'm going to remove everything from here, right? And I am going to write the code to use the employee list, and I am going to import it. And if I import it, I will get it here. This is the component that we are, using inside of the app component. So if I refresh the project, we'll resolve this issue. Let's see if serving the application one more time will resolve the issue or not. Anyway, the next step, we're going to get to the error shortly. The next step is to show some employee data inside of the employee list component. Basically, what we are going to do is to create a hard-coded list of employees with projects, as you can see here. And then we are going to show this employees list inside of the component. We are importing the common module as well, right? I'm going to talk about common module. Here, we're going to talk about these, common module, but I need to update the employee list template as well, because inside of the employee list HTML file or template, I am going to loop through that array inside of the TS file, the employees array, and for each item inside of there, I am going to show the name as well as the project name, the deadline, and so on, if there is a project associated with that employee. So yeah, let's get to this. Inside of the app, inside of the employee list component, we need to start, writing the code. So I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to write the code for employee list component. Let's import the employee type. Let's import the common module, which we are going to discuss. And let's create the component. It's going to be a standalone component. We're importing common module. Inside of the component itself, we're creating an array of type employee. It's called employees. We're going to add some, employees to this array. The next employee is going to be Bob Smith. So that is the object or the array inside of the component TS file that we can now use from the HTML file, from the template file. Let's remove this and let me write the code for the template. So it's going to be an employee list. We're going to use ng4 to loop through the employees array defined in the component TS file. And for each employee, we are going to render the name and the projects. No worries, we are going to talk about everything there is to learn about, ng4 and other, important stuff that is going on here. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about the common module, because if you remember, we imported common module. If you take a look at the component here, we are importing common module here and we are importing common module here. So let's talk about common module to see what common module is. So what is common module in Angular? We did this, right? We imported this. This is the code. So the common module is a core Angular module that provides many of the basic directives and pipes you use in a template. So when I say pipe, I don't know whether you're familiar with TypeScript or not, but you need to be, right? I'm assuming you're a little familiar with the concepts of TypeScript. So by directive, I mean, for example, these directives, ng4. ng4 is one example of directives in Angular. And when I say pipes, I mean these. So right now I am using a built-in pipe called date in Angular. And I am getting my access to this directive and to this pipe because I am importing the common module. Why do you need it? Why do you need to import the common module? So let's read this sentence as well. It's especially important when working with standalone components or feature modules. Anything outside the root app module. Here we're not using modules, we're using a standalone components. And you see here inside of the component that a standalone is true. So we need to import common module here and here if we want to use directives and pipes. Why do you need it again? If you're not using browser module, which is used in app module only, then you need to explicitly import common module in any component or module where you want to use standard Angular features like ng4, ngIf, or built-in pipes. What does common module include? Directives, ngIf, a structural directive for conditionals. If, for example, this has a truthy value, render this div. ng4, looping through arrays, something that we did in our employee list component. ng class, conditionally set CSS classes. So if, for example, this value exists, then apply the, ng class. So ng class is going to help you, in this case, to set the active class using this is active, flag. ng style, conditionally set inline styles. So color is going to be red. And pipes, date is something that we have been using here, right? So example is going to be, date. And this, I think, has some issue here. But yeah, you get the point. In our case, we are using the pipe called date here, right? So if you want to use directives and pipes, built-in directives and built-in pipes, you need the common module. You should import common module in the following cases: when you're using a standalone components, that makes sense for us. In feature modules, not root ng files. And then you saw the code for employee list. So let me refresh the employee list. Let me correct this small typo. So you see here that we've got the two employees hard-coded inside of the employee list component, these two. Now let's see the summary of this episode. In this episode, we installed Angular CLI. Actually, I have already installed it. We created a new Angular application. We generated the first component using Angular CLI. We defined the two model classes, employee and project, and we displayed the static data using Angular, directives and ng4. And we also talked about common module in Angular. If you want to use built-in pipes and directives, you need to import the common module inside of your, standalone components. And that's it for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. If that's the case, keep watching the upcoming videos as well. Because in the upcoming videos, we're gonna, evolve this project one step at a time. I'm gonna introduce you to the concept of services. We are going to add a form for adding new employees. We are going to communicate with the backend API. Then we are going to write unit tests and so on. So again, as I told you at the very beginning, if you keep watching these videos, you will become an Angular developer before you know it. Thank you so much for watching this video again, and I'll see you in the next one.